and welcome back to another episode of Collider Jedi Council. I'm Kristian Harloff, a.k.a. Darth Harloff, and we have a full stacked panel today. No, we don't. It's just Mark 2D2 himself, Mark Ellis. We take over once again.
We're just taking over Collider this week, but we should mention they are down a man, a cast member from last week, and I think you know who we're talking about. Yoda is no longer hanging out up there. Where did Yoda go?
I don't know. He's got gas. But John's out today. He will be back next week. But we have a stacked show today. It's going to be. I'm very excited because a little later on in the show, we're going to be having the author of Lost Stars, the book I've been raving about for the last month, Claudia Gray. I was able to sit down and chat with her. I'm going to let you guys see that. I also got to sit down and chat with the executive producer of Rebels, David, yeah, it's his full name, Dave Filoni, and I'll be talking, show you that one as well. But the way this show works, if this is your first time joining, welcome. We are going to talk about Star Wars movie news, and that's everything happening in the world of the films, anthology films, the saga, anything going on in the films, the news, movies, we talk about it. Mark, what's up first?
Well, episode 7 just got real. Kind of more so, maybe we think so, because we got almost an official trailer date, and we definitely got a world premiere date. So, Kristian, first of all, the Star Wars Force Awakens trailer, the one that everybody's looking forward to, that we think is going to be the last trailer before the movie comes out on December 18th, is rumored to be coming out October 19th, which would be very interesting timing because it's pretty much been confirmed, reported, that tickets go on sale October 18th. That makes a lot of sense.
It does. I do actually make more sense now if the tickets go on sale on the 19th and not the 18th.
Just coinciding with the release.
Yeah, I think so. And I think StarWars7News.com, who we reference here all the time, buddies of ours, and great source of Star Wars news, and they have their own special articles. But they, I think, are rumoring also that the ticket sales might actually go on the 19th.
It's going to be one big lump thing because you see the trailer, and then at the end it says you can click here to buy tickets. Makes sense.
That makes sense because you're going to go nuts once that trailer comes out. You know, the first two are some of the most watched trailers of all time. The movies are one of the more anticipated movies of all time. So to drop it, I think it's brilliant marketing to do that, to finally know what the story's about. You drop the money on the tickets. I mean, we've been speculating that this probably would make sense, and then you have Rebels coming around the same weekend.
Rebels is earlier, though, which is
earlier,
intriguing because maybe they run a 10 or 15 second, maybe there's a TV spot for The Force Awakens during Rebels.
Like a Guess What's Coming Soon thing?
Yeah, maybe they run it on Sunday Night Football or something like that, something that a lot of people are going to be watching the weekend before the 19th, where it just says, hey, make sure you're glued to your computer the morning of the 19th because we got some really cool footage to show you. What's also interesting is that this just came to press right before we went to air, is that Disney announced that the world premiere of The Force Awakens is going to be held in Los Angeles on December 14th. So that's going to be the big gala event. A lot of stars are going to go to that thing. And it just happens to be in Los Angeles, a city that we live in. Are we going to go to this?
If we can get tickets, sure. But the thing that I got really sad about was where I saw a little thing in fine print on the bottom that doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of press screenings. So we were getting so happy about how we were going to go see it early. We might not be seeing it as early as we thought. And it makes sense. And the reason we bring that up is because normally, you know, press will see it, they'll talk about it, and even if there's an embargo, some things come out here and there. I think Disney and Lucasfilm is shutting down any word of coming out. And I don't think it's going to be one of these things where like, oh, because it stinks. No, it's a secrecy thing. And I think that's why they announced there's not going, or not announced, but that's why the word's coming out that there's not going to be a lot of press.
Yeah.
Because of the holding the secrecy and not, no. We don't think this movie's bad by any means. We just don't want people talking about it.
This is not an embargo situation at all. I mean, it's not, keep mum because we don't want anybody talking about this movie until opening weekend. Like, people are going to be raving about this movie. I hope critics are going to be able to share their thoughts after they see the press screening. There might be some sort of embargo, but it's not going to be like the night before. You're going to be allowed to talk about
how many press screenings?
People are going to want to get their word out on Star Wars The Force Awakens. We'll get ours to you guys as soon as possible. Maybe we get to see it December 14th. Maybe even early, because it should also be noted a lot of times press screenings happen before the actual world premiere.
Definitely.
They'll show it to critics. So we might even get to see it earlier than the 14th.
Look, Marvel shows their movies sometimes 2 weeks in advance. We saw Ultron like 2 weeks beforehand, but this is what I'm saying. I don't know if they're going to be doing this round. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of press screenings. I think that they want everyone to kind of see it at the same time. We'll see. I mean, I'm going to be sad and happy at the same time because there's also something to be said about, because I'm going to go see it in the crowd, just a non-press crowd regardless.
Multiple times, hopefully opening night.
Yeah, and I think that I loved John's idea of the fact that we should almost do like a Jedi Council Force Awakens screening with the fans. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That would rock. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be in Tempe on the road when it comes out, that Thursday midnight or Thursday 10 p.m. I'm going to run from the Improv over to the AMC, which happens to be right across the street. I've already mapped this thing out before tickets have even gone on sale, so I'm going to see this thing multiple times with people. Hopefully we get to see it a little bit earlier. We'll find out.
How about you guys? Are you guys going opening night, or are you going to go opening weekend, or are you going to wait to see it? Comment. Let us know exactly what you were thinking. I'm curious how many people are going like the first Thursday night show, or just going to try to when the tickets go on sale. Because I was talking to Dennis about it, and we're both like, we're jumping online the second you can buy tickets. And he's like, I'm trying to get the first showing that I can, at the Prime. And I'm like, oh, okay, I want to try to get the first one on the Thursday night because I do want to feel that energy, the energy that we felt at Celebration. Like when the fans it was like an ocean. It's just a wave that just hits you of this emotion of everyone going, yeah, like that's what you're going to get. The opening crawl. People are going to lose their minds.
It adds to that rock concert atmosphere, the fact you have to buy tickets months ahead of time. You mentioned the opening crawl.
What do we got next?
Our next story is that Disney chief Bob Iger came out and said that you're not going to see the Disney logo in front of Star Wars. Everybody remembers the first 6 films and that great 20th Century Fox fanfare. Well, Fox doesn't have the property anymore, so it goes over to Disney, and Disney has a pretty cool intro where you speed over the Magic Kingdom, and you hear that When You Wish Upon a Star opening chords. That's not going to happen in Star Wars. So, Kristian, is something going to replace it, or are we just going right into Lucasfilm?
I think you go right into Lucasfilm, and I think this is really smart. It's the same thing that Marvel doesn't have the Disney thing either.
They don't? Really?
Nope. And it makes sense because it doesn't. And it was funny when Disney bought over Lucasfilm, and everyone, like not everyone, a lot of people were like, "Oh, they're gonna Disneyfy it," and all the mouse memes came and everything too, and they think just because they've made animations in the past that it's going to be kiddie, and everything that we've seen so far from the trailers, it certainly doesn't seem kiddie. I mean, we haven't seen the movie, but still. I think Bob Iger knows what Star Wars is. Everything you hear when you talk to him, when you hear him talk about Star Wars and what it means, and he understands it. He knows what the fans want. He's one of the smartest people I've ever read about it. I'm in awe of Bob Iger. I really am, and I think this is really smart. A smart move to not put the Disney logo there.
You're right. It does lend itself to a slightly more adult tone, just seeing the Lucasfilm, and then, of course, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
No Fox fanfare, though.
I'm going to miss the Fox fanfare. I'm not going to lie to you. That's my generation. That's multiple generations. It wouldn't have bugged me seeing Disney logo. I thought that would have looked cool. They might have done even something a little special for it, but this news really doesn't affect me one way or the other. Like, I'm not going to walk out of it being like, I can't believe they left off Jiminy Cricket. I just don't care, but it's an interesting maneuver.
You're whistling to yourself. All right, what's next?
Well, that is episode 7 news, and we might have some more tidbits about that coming up. But right now, let's focus on episode 8, which is just over a year and a half away now, plus a couple months. There's been rumors that Gugu Mbatha-Raw is being looked at for one of the leads of episode 8. And Kristian, you will remember her work from such Oscar-winning fare as Jupiter Ascending and Beyond the Lights. Now, Jupiter Ascending was a horrible movie. She wasn't bad in it.
No, she's good in everything she's done.
And
so
you saw
far.
Beyond the Lights and you liked it. You liked her in it.
Yes, and it's funny. Well, the second time I saw it, I liked it more. But we talked about this on Movie Talk today. She is electric. She's one of those people that you remember her. There's something about she's got the presence. And again, echoing what we said this morning on Movie Talk, they're going after talent. They're going after people who fit the role the best, that have the best acting chops, and this is great. Now the question is, who does she play? There's been rumors of because Tatiana Maslany was up for a role that we thought. Gina Rodriguez, other ones. I mean, there have been a few people who've been out there and they've talked about. Now, we don't know if that means that they're not in the running anymore. They very well might be, just a different role. But the other thing that I love is that Claudia Gray, who we're going to hear from in a little bit here, wrote, when she was writing Lost Stars, the character of Sienna, she wrote with Gugu in her mind, like thinking about it, like was inspired by her. And it's funny when she says that now, you picture her when you're reading Lost Stars, and she fits in the Star Wars world.
Yeah, and we got wind a few weeks ago that Episode 8 was looking to cast a female in the lead, and like Kristian said, we don't know if she's the one they're looking at, but it's very rare that Star Wars news gets leaked totally by accident or that they didn't want something to come out. So you would imagine she would be being looked at for one of the leads, and if you want another strong female character, and that just lends credence to what Kathleen Kennedy has been saying all along, is that this new trilogy is going to be female-centric, and they are going to play strong. There's going to be strong women, and a lot of them in this new trilogy, which is exciting.
It also makes sense. It's funny though too, because we're only about a year and a half away from Episode 8. Is that crazy enough to say?
Yeah.
And this is when we started to get the casting news for Episode 7. Just around between a little over a year and a half away is when we started getting the news who's in the movie. Now, granted, there's going to be a lot of people from Episode 7 carrying over, but we will learn. We already know Benicio del Toro, and I think that we'll learn more. We're going to get more information about Episode 8. You're going to get a floodgate of information after Episode 7 comes out, because then everyone's going to be like, well, wait a minute, after that happened, then what does that mean? Now, the question is she bad? Is she good? Is she a love interest of Kylo Ren? Is she a love interest of Finn?
Is she related to somebody?
Is she a love interest of Poe? Is she related to someone? There's so much that she could do, or is it something completely different and we have no idea?
Mm-hmm.
There's a realm of possibilities, and it's great to see that that they're going after the talent.
Yeah, the talent is the key thing. And speaking of talent, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a guy that's pretty talented, and he had a funny interview where he talked about how bad he wants to be in Star Wars Episode 8. Now, you'll recall that he has been in a number of Rian Johnson films, Rian Johnson obviously directing Episode 8, and so he says that he keeps knocking on his door and hinting that he wants to be a part of Episode 8, maybe in some capacity akin to Simon Pegg being in Episode 7, where you might not even recognize that Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in the movie. I don't think they have a lead role set aside for him, but you never know. Kristian, would you be on board with having Levitt in the movie? And if so, where do you want to see him factor in?
I would be on board with him in it, and I kind of hope he is, because of the relationship that he and Rian Johnson have. They have that kind of Scorsese, De Niro, Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio type relationship. They've with Brick and Looper, and they worked. They know each other really well, and I think that it's one of those things that. And I remember our own Mark Riley, about 2.5 years ago, had asked Joseph Gordon-Levitt if he'd want to be in a Star Wars movie, and he was like, absolutely. I know the question is any actor you ask is going to say that, but again, and I mentioned this when Leonardo DiCaprio was asked, like the boyish, like, are you kidding? Like a Star Wars movie? So as far as what I'd like to see him play, I think Ray nailed it. I think a rebel pilot. I think more so that I don't want every single person who's a friend or super famous to just put on the alien outfit. I think that's kind of Simon Pegg's shtick now. I don't want, or maybe Daniel Craig as a stormtrooper. We don't know, but I think that it would be interesting. It would be a humble choice for Joseph Gordon-Levitt to be in a smaller role as a rebel pilot who maybe he goes through a space battle and then he bites it at the end.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get to the point where you're just putting famous people in for the sake of their friends with the director or something like that, in which case I would prefer. I like the Simon Pegg, Daniel Craig route. If you're not going to have a prominent role in there, don't take me out of the film by putting yourself in there. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt has done this recently. I mean, he was in Lincoln, and he was only in a couple scenes in Lincoln playing Abraham Lincoln's son. I just hope he drops the French accent he has in The Walk. As much as I liked it in that movie, I don't want to see you speaking French again anytime soon. That's me.
Okay, what's next?
Well, speaking of Episode 8, Benicio del Toro has been chatting a little bit in a recent interview talking about Rian Johnson and the directing style that he's going to bring to Episode 8. We already knew, Del Toro confirmed himself, he's going to be playing a baddie in Episode 8. And he also talked about how Rian Johnson's style, he brings a realism in the world of science fiction to his movies. And so he's very excited to see what he does with Star Wars Episode 8. Kristian, your thoughts on Del Toro's comments?
I love it. He was talking about when the interviewer was asking him about if he was a fan. He was talking about the cards that he used to have, and he had a bunch on his wall. He was always a Han Solo guy, and he mentioned Han Solo and Chewbacca were the first two that he mentioned. Now we know he's playing a villain, so there's still that hope that he plays an Admiral Thrawn type character. We'll see. I think he's going to wind up playing somebody in the Resistance, because whoever it turns out, maybe it's Donald Gleason, whoever is someone, you would assume that someone from the Resistance has to die. Someone. Right now, is it going to be Phasma? I doubt it'll be Kylo Ren, but it's not going to be Snoke. Snoke's going to be around for a while, but it's got to be like Tarkin. Tarkin crapped out in the first movie, and he was the main villain, because they're going to go up against, like, there's got to be some kind of victory, even though there's a loss. And I think the reason I bring that up is because I think Benicio del Toro will replace that person.
Someone in the First Order you think has to bite it in
What I
episode
said, Resistance?
7. You said Resistance.
I meant First Order.
Yeah, now they kind of are the Resistance. Maybe they're the ones on the run.
No. Yeah,
someone
First
in the
Order.
First Order you think has to bite it. I'm not necessarily buying that because, yes, it's episode 7. It's kicking off a new trilogy, but it's not like A New Hope in 77 when we meet the good guys, meet the bad guys, some bad guy has to bite it. Like, all of these ones could survive. I don't know who you take out of that equation, including Phasma. Maybe something happens with one of these bad guys when they realize that they are going down the wrong path and they switch gears, like what you think might happen with Gleason's character. I think he's going to be evil throughout, but Del Toro is not going to be that guy that I think defects and goes back to the good. I think he's going to be bad
all the way through,
and I can't wait to see it in 20 months.
And he mentioned Rian Johnson's how being a fan of Rian Johnson and enjoying Looper and what he's going to do and bring that sci-fi element. It's also Benicio del Toro hasn't given away a lot, but he's been pretty outspoken. Like most people that you ask him about Star Wars, they kind of shut down. He hasn't been like that. He hasn't really given anything revealing, but he's talking about it. And he's also that guy. Like you see Sicario, best thing in the whole entire movie. I cannot wait to see what he brings to the universe. And this is someone who you're just talking about before with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Mm-hmm. He is one of the more well-known actors now that's going to be in the new Star Wars movies. I mean, take the original cast away, you could make an argument that he's probably the most famous person in the movie right now. Movies 7 and 8.
Absolutely, yeah. And
Not
I would put him on a list.
Including Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I mean, I'd put him on a list up there with Liam Neeson, Natalie Portman, or Samuel L. Jackson.
I'm in the new one. I'm talking about the new ones that are coming.
In the new one, he probably is the most famous. You're right. And when you see him in something like Sicario, which he is just out in theaters, it's like he disappears so well into these roles that you're no longer watching Benicio del Toro. You're watching whatever role he's playing. So he's going to fit in just fine.
I agree. Okay, what's next?
Well, an actress that we hope fits in just fine is whoever The Wrap is talking about might be one of the leads in Episode 8, or at least play some sort of role. They're reporting that they pinned down at least part of the short list for the new female lead that is currently being cast in Episode 8. Now, we're not sure if this factors in with the Gugu Mbatu Raw news or if this is a different role, but among the list of rumored actresses here would be Gina Rodriguez from Jane the Virgin, Tatiana Maslany from Orphan Black, and Olivia Cook, who was just in Me, Earl, and The Dying Girl. So, Kristian, we knew Maslany was also rumored for Rogue One, I believe,
she was.
At some point. Do you have a feeling? Is your force meter trembling with any one of these actresses?
I think it's two different roles, man. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look, there was the rumor that there was another solo daughter that was coming, or a solo daughter in general. That was out
probably
for
a lot of solo daughters. Let's be honest.
That's
probably
true.
a lot of
That's
them.
true. Let's say that is indeed the case. You would, if and it is with Leia. Again, if you're assuming it's with Leia,
we kind of hope so.
You hope so, but if it is, then you would assume that Tatiana Maslany and Olivia Cook would be in the running for that. Now, as far as Gina Rodriguez, I think she was probably going up for the role that Gugu eventually got. I think that's my guess. This is all speculation. But who knows? Maybe it's one role, and maybe we have our winner. We just talked about it at the top of the show. So there's going to be more roles, and I think that Tatiana Maslany is going to be in a Star Wars movie. If it's not Episode 8, it will be in something. They like her. She's been rumored for, like you said, Rogue One. I think she might have been rumored for Episode 7, maybe not. But she's on their radar. They keep bringing her in. They want her in the universe.
Right. Lucasfilm is a pretty good place to go in for a general meeting because they got a bunch of cool movies coming up very, very shortly. So it's hard to speculate. I mean, you could even ask us after we see Episode 7, hopefully by December 14th, and we might still be totally in the dark as to what kind of role they're casting because Episode 8 could throw a lot of curveballs as well. So it's hard to speculate on what role they would be playing, but I like that they're going after young talent that isn't maybe necessarily on everybody's radar just yet.
Right, like go back in time. If they ran the business the way they do today and New Hope hadn't come out yet, and it's just about to come out, and then we say, like, oh, and by the way, Billy Dee Williams was cast in Episode 5. He's rumored with so-so and so-and-so. What do you think they'll be playing? You wouldn't guess Lando. You wouldn't know what it was. But so that's kind of the same scenario. All right, that's it as far as the Star Wars movie news. This show is going to be packed with our next segment, which we love here. It is simply called What's the Deal with Canon? These are everything, all the news happening in the world of Star Wars, the books, the comic books, Rebels, the TV shows, anything that ultimately leads back to the movies. We talk about it here. Mark, What is the deal with Canon?
You had a busy week last week, didn't you, brother?
Yes, I
So
did.
you had the pleasure of going to the Rebels Season 2 press conference that was held here in Los Angeles last week. And I want to get your thoughts on a number of things, maybe news articles that came out of there, but particularly let's talk about maybe a live-action crossover that they referenced on stage. What really struck you about that?
I mean, and I talked to, and I'll show you a little bit here about when I spoke with Filoni about that as well too. Dave Filoni did a lot of the talking too because he's a fountain of information. And people just kept asking him questions because they wanted to hear him talk more. And he even went on a little longer because he said it's like, these guys love Star Wars. I want to talk Star Wars. He's great. And he even said in the beginning, because he showed us the first 2 episodes of the new season, not Siege of Lothal, the first 2 actual episodes with the clone angle.
And they're cool, right?
We'll talk about it in a second. But he made sure that he told everybody that once people were interviewing him, that he couldn't talk about The Force Awakens, and he really couldn't talk about Rogue One because there's, they would love to do live action stuff, and if it transfers over at times, if there's a character that works, of course he'd be up for it. And everyone throughout Lucasfilm and in Star Wars says the same thing, and that's if it makes sense and if it's a story that should be told, we'll tell it. Remember when we went to that Canon panel?
Absolutely, yeah, and it was the same line of talk, but you're good at reading people. You can look into a man's eyes and you can know what he's saying. You didn't get anything off him that maybe we see a Rebels character in Rogue One.
He's a Rebels character in Rogue One. I wouldn't be surprised, man. Like he talked about, and I don't want to give too much away because I ask him a lot of this stuff in the interview, so I don't want to repeat stuff. But he just talks about the way that they used to pull stuff in Clone Wars. He talks about how they approach stuff now. He talked about the Vader and Ahsoka angle and just everything that's going. What he did mention, what I loved, was how much character development and backstory you were going to get from all the characters, and you're going to learn so much, and you'll learn more about Hera and how she came to be, and how her dad, Cham Sudala, who's a big part of Lords of the Sith that John and I rave about all the time, the novel. Freddie Prinze Jr. talks about Kanan and his journey. D. Bradley Baker, who comes back as Rex, he talked about coming back and voicing clones and how he was going to be involved, and just hearing all of them talk. They are so in love with Star Wars, like the way we are, and you buy it. You buy it because they're having fun, and that's what you want these people to be doing. You don't want them to just be great performances. You want them to have fun with what they're doing, and they do. They're looking through scripts and going, "Whoa, wait, what happens? What happens?" And Freddie Prinze Jr. is a diehard Star Wars fan, and I have, like, before, I've never been like a big fan of the guy, but never had anything against him. But my opinion's changed, man. I could not imagine anyone else voicing Kanan than this guy.
I still I Know What You Did Last Summer.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, you also got to sit down and talk with Dave Filoni in depth, as well as the cast of Rebels, like Freddie Prinze Jr. But your interview with Dave Filoni, you're right. You watch it, and I mean, we can show it to you guys now. He just seems like he's one of the guys that not only is a huge Star Wars fan, he's in the know. He knows the story point. He doesn't need to see the new trailer for Episode 7. He already knows what's coming.
Remember, he was trained by George Lucas.
Right.
George Lucas was his mentor. He was the Padawan for a long time in Clone Wars. And Clone Wars, the thing is that, and the thing, it's unfair, to be completely honest, to where, and I fully acknowledge how many people do enjoy the prequels. I understand that, but I think it's unfair to the Clone Wars and George Lucas, because George Lucas he gets punched a lot for the prequels, but he doesn't get hugged enough for the Clone Wars. Now, Filoni absolutely gets the respect for the Clone Wars. Lucas was in that writing room all of the time. Mm-hmm. Lucas was giving him notes and helping him down the path to figure out Star Wars all of the time. Lucas was instrumental in the success of Clone Wars. So I just wanted that to be said. But you watch the way that Dave Filoni has evolved, and then so when he was actually the guy I actually didn't get to speak. Freddie Prinze Jr. is the only one I didn't get to speak to, and I'm only going to be able to show you guys right now the Dave Filoni interview. Dennis is going to put up the Ashley Eckstein and D. Bradley Baker interview, as well as Vanessa Marshall, who I spoke to as well, who plays Hera. All those will be up. You can find those interviews if you want to watch them. But the Dave Filoni, I was really looking forward to speaking with him. There's a lot of questions I want to ask him, and I opened with one that you and I had spoken about, and I was like, I'm going to open with that. But without any further ado, here is my interview when I sat down with Dave Filoni. Enjoy. He's the best. you're so in this world, and just listen to you in there. You're a diehard fan, obviously that's why you're doing this as well. Is a live action film, an anthology film, something that you've ever wanted to tackle or been discussed?
Well, I'm a terrible liar, so let's just start with that. I would say that it's something that does greatly interest me. It's something that I've thought about, and in some ways I see it as a natural evolution of everything I've been learning, working on Star Wars, which is George taught me in much more of a live action sensibility, because that's what he is. Right. And a lot of the techniques I've used over the years to film, and with the way we did the CG shooting coverage and whatnot, the language of it, the editing style of it, is all very similar. And so I've been in a very fortunate situation to be able to watch at times these great filmmakers we've brought in to do the movies work, to familiarize myself with what they do. So, is that happening? No, I'm not going to say that's happening. Is it interesting to me? It's absolutely interesting to me. There probably wouldn't be a better situation for me having someone like Kathy Kennedy around and a great story team like we have at Lucasfilm. But right now, my focus is so much on the animated world that we're doing, because I see it personally as not just being Rebels. My hope is that we can eventually expand out and tell multiple stories that are happening in animation. Animation has so many different styles and techniques that you can use. I feel like we've always just scratched the surface. So to me, it's like, what kind of story do I want to tell, and who are the characters in it? And then, there's a wide variety of even animation styles that we could still, in the years to come, exploit to tell stories. But I do think, just on a completely fantasy level for myself, that if I was able to in some way breathe, live action life into some of the characters I created in animation, that it would be, really exciting for the fans that grew up with it. So you never know.
You said so much in there. I wish I had you for 2 hours. In the Clone Wars, you could take stuff from Legends, like you made Darth Bane canon. Thank you for that, by the way. And you were at one point going to be Darth Revan in there. But you guys were the only game in town at that time. So you were able to pull these things, make them canon. Now it's not necessarily pulling, you can pull things from Legends obviously, but now when you're pulling things from the new canon, it's history. So do you have to, is it overwhelming, that stuff as well too?
It's honestly not very different from how I worked before. My main concentration, of course, is the stories I'm telling in the films. I think what we're more careful about, as you noted, is before we were the only thing really happening in canon when we did Clone Wars. Right. Now you do have to say, is anybody doing anything with that? No. Okay. Can we put flags around that so we have that? So cool. When we're ready, we can get there. And everybody's pretty good at doing that. And you just hope when there's an idea, sometimes you'll go meet with the people doing that idea and say, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but I had these thoughts. Right. So these are just my thoughts on it. And you kind of work that way. But, as long as the story group is aware through Kiri Hart of what's happening, like my office is right next to hers. And I say, Kiri, I want to do this thing with so-and-so. Oh, okay, well, that'll work. Off I go. So speaking of Kiri Hart, she had also mentioned, too, and I'm not going to ask you for story details, but she had mentioned that it's possible that you guys were aware that the timeline of Rebels is going to coincide with Rogue One, because the way you guys are timing it out now, because I assume, and that's another thing, is how many more episodes you're doing now. I assume, do you know when this season ends? Like, I don't mean this for a story point. I mean as far as actual date, because I'm curious. Season 3, I assume, would loop up right to where Rogue One is. Obviously, you're very aware of that. If you had if you could, I'm trying to word this the best way that I know you can't give me anything. Is there something that any one of these characters that you would like to see in the live action world? Sure.
Like Cad Bane, maybe? Anybody that might pop up? Anyone along those lines?
Those are always possibilities. I think what's most important is that we are aware of all the release dates. Yeah. So, we don't want to precede the films with something that would undercut, again, how special they need to be in that moment. Once they're out, there's more opportunity then to say, okay, well, let's bring that element in. Now everybody knows about that. We can tell an earlier part of that story in Rebels. So we do strategize around that, but most of the time we're serving the character arcs in Rebels. It's just a fun thing to know that there's these big films happening, and there's always opportunities, so you can bug them and be like, hey, maybe use this guy. And I'm always the most open about it. In all honesty, it's outside of Ahsoka. Ahsoka's the only character that, if anybody wanted to do something with that character, I would be like, I need to be involved. I need to be directly involved. I don't know.
I think that's a Sith plot right there. I think you're right. I'm just telling you my prediction here before I let you go here.
Go ahead.
Vader, when he went up against Kanan and Ezra, it was like Tyson in '86.
Right.
You don't get in the ring with him.
Not even close.
Don't even get in the ring with him.
Yeah.
But when Ahsoka knows a little bit more about him, I think what I think her arc is that she's trying to figure it out. And when that final battle comes, I love Ahsoka, but I don't think she's making it out. I just wanted to tell you my predictions.
That's good. Yeah, I think the details are all in right. How does it happen? If it happens, and it's a challenging thing. Again, you have to somehow tell this story. You would never want to undercut Vader, and I've always said that I don't really ever want Ahsoka's story to be that in the end she just turned out to be another element that drove Anakin to the dark side. I think she deserves more than that. She should stand on her own right as a character. But she has this great connection to Anakin Skywalker. In a lot of ways, she's become a vessel for what was the good parts of Anakin Skywalker, because her maintaining the Jedi way, at least as far as she practices it, maintains a lot of his teachings, within her. So what that tells you, though, is that Darth Vader would want to desperately destroy that because of his guilt and shame around who he was and what happened, and the death of Padme and everything. He would want to crush Ahsoka. Some people live in a fantasy world where they could somehow be friends, and I don't see that as a possibility, because it's really Luke's job to spark that hope in his father, So otherwise, it's going to be an intense season.
And thank you for that. Thank you for joining me today. And thank you for everything you've done for Star Wars fans in general. Really appreciate it. Thanks,
My
Dave.
pleasure.
All right. See you soon.
See you, man.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. He is the ultimate Star Wars fan, and he's such a good dude. Just like you hear him, and he's kind of laughing because he knows how much he can give away and how much he can't. I love this. The first thing I asked him, as far as, will we see you do a live action film? And he says, look, I'm a terrible liar. Of course I want to do it. And he's a guy that after Rebels, I bet you he's going to be offered a live action film.
But it's also fun watching you go toe to toe with him, because it's a little Frost Nixon. He knows, he can tell as soon as you ask the first question, he can tell how much you know about all the source material. You're not just some puff piece reporter coming in trying to get a quick scoop. You want to have a conversation with this dude about Star Wars.
I said to him, I could talk to you for 2 hours.
It's fun to watch him play off that too. Yeah. And I'm glad that you cut the interview down to 15 minutes, because this thing could have gone all day.
Yeah. That particular, I think we only showed about 8 minutes of that one. So if you want to watch the full, there's even a couple more questions I asked him. So the full Dave Filoni interview is up there. But the thing that I really take out of it is, and I even said it to him at the end, that's the guy you want running. I mean, he is the George Lucas of Rebels right now, because he's the one making the decisions.
Right.
And I think that even it was interesting to hear him talk about Rogue One and how it ties up. And I was even asking about timeline. You see, he knows a lot more that he can't tell us. And he even says, he tells them in the press conference, by the way, he says, sometimes I tell Ashley Eckstein that Ahsoka will die. Sometimes I say she won't. And he loves messing with people too. He's really great. The one thing I wanted to ask, we did this to Freddie Prinze Jr. I need the council watchers to tweet at Dave Filoni. They got to do it. We got to get him on this show.
Oh yeah.
We need him for an hour and a half. Tell Dave Filoni that he needs to be on Jedi Council, that we just aired his interview and that you saw it. We need to get him on the show. He's someone that we could talk to about Star Wars in general forever.
We got to see this episode. We had to see if we're on this side and on this side. There's always room for Dave Filoni on this show. Come on, hang with the council.
All right, what's next?
And Sarah Michelle Gellar, you're also welcome to come by anytime you want. And it's been recently announced that she will be appearing on Star Wars Rebels as the seventh sister, which is going to be sort of a female inquisitor. I mean, look at that shot. She's also going to have these mimic probe droids that are going to be following her around doing some damage with the Jedi. Kristian, your thoughts on Sarah Michelle Gellar officially being the seventh sister?
I love it. I mean, I still think it's funny because someone tweeted, like, oh, there goes the Mara Jade idea. I don't think so. I still think there's a chance that she's a character, and I think it actually even gives it more of a chance. She's a character based off of what Mara Jade was. There was Eileen Zahn was the rumored name because connecting back to Timothy Zahn, who created Mara Jade. I think that it's very possible that this ultimately is Rey's mom. I think that very, very, very likely, no, not likely, very possible. Very possible that it comes out to be someone's going to have a turn. Now, whether it's Ezra going to the dark side or someone going to the light, it happened with Ventress in the Clone Wars. Someone can have a turn to the light here, and I think it might be her. Now, they also had announced the and I got to see, I forget the character's name, the brother, the other Inquisitor who was like the brother, and he's got Antonio Banderas' voice, not Puss in Boots though.
She's playing off Kanan Jarrus, but that's Kanan, who I hope not. There is the fifth brother, the gray-skinned alien.
That's it. The fifth brother is the one, and he sounds like Antonio Banderas,
but not Puss in Boots.
Not Puss in Boots.
The most adorable character ever.
Yes. So both of them, I think, are going to be a presence. Dave Filoni has said that this will be the Empire Strikes Back of Rebels. So I think, and if this is Vader's, these are who Vader's sending out. He's he's not sending out the B team anymore.
He means business, and we will get to see her in season 2. This isn't something further down the road. We are going to see her pop in.
I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up in the 3rd or 4th episode.
Is there any chance that she is Barriss Offee? A
lot of people were saying that if you are not familiar with Barriss Offee, she's from the Clone Wars and had a beef with Ahsoka Tano, and a lot of people think that it might be her, but I don't think that it will be her. But there again, good chance. I still am gonna lean towards the Eileen Zahn / Mara Jade thing, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's just there are a lot of new cool characters happening.
Well, you've seen some of those new cool characters because you actually got a chance, as you bragged about, to screen the 2 new episodes of Rebels that are going to kick off this season. So without further ado, please tell us if they're as awesome as we all want them to be.
I like where we're going. Remember how many episodes we have this season. I think there's twice as many now. I think there's like 22 episodes, and last season was either 10 or 13 or something.
Right.
So we start. I'm not going to give a lot of spoilers, but we get to see it's the first 2 episodes, and this is not the Siege of Lothal, which is the Darth Vader episode. Which reminds me, by the way, before I get into I had to have I asked the first question at the press conference.
I do not doubt that for a second.
And if you go, I think that it's online somewhere. But I asked them about, because remember what John's biggest complaint about Rebels Siege of Lothal is why they aired it so early. Mm-hmm. I asked Dave Filoni that. I said, why was the choice made to air the new ones in October and have such a gap? And from his answering as politically as he could, definitely wasn't his choice. And he said, oh, sometimes, he's like, I don't even know when these things are airing. I think it was him.
Really?
I think it was him saying, not my choice. I didn't want to, that I wouldn't have done that. But he didn't say those words. But I think that if it was up to him, he would have put them sooner because he was getting tweets about it all the time, and he was getting fans hitting him up like, when you just gave me this amazing 2 episodes and now I have to wait. So I think a lot of people echo John's sentiments about how it was too long, and I would not be surprised if Filoni feels the same way.
But if I had to hear about other people seeing that at Star Wars Celebration and didn't get a chance myself to see it until October.
Not just Celebration though. Because Celebration was April. Then they aired it in July.
That's what I'm saying. Is it if I got to see it, because I think they would have showed it at Celebration regardless, because they wanted to kick ass all 4 days of that thing.
Right.
If I had to hear about you having seen that all the way until October without me getting the chance, I think it was really cool that they put it out there earlier. Give the fans a chance to catch up to everybody who was lucky enough to get a ticket to Star Wars Celebration. So now we're all on an equal playing field for 3 months before Rebels kicks off.
Right. So the episodes, the ones that we kick into and how the season begins after the Siege of Lothal, it really is about the clone troopers and how Rex has been out in like kind of this barren wasteland and with 2 other clones, and Ahsoka tells Kanan that he's got to find them. And this is what I love about it, is that it ties into, like, this is where it benefits you if you're reading the canon. It doesn't take away from it, but if you're reading the comic books of Kanan, you understand so much more of why he has this hatred for the clones. I mean, you pick it up as you're watching the episode that he doesn't trust them because of what happened, and he mentions it. But reading the Greg Weisman book, I know exactly why. I know exactly, and so I knew it going in. I'm like, oh, this isn't going to go well because of the things that had happened. So this is where the canon really connects well. But there's some really funny moments. There's some good moments. There's some. I mean, you have the Empire is pretty strong, and I will say one thing: you get to see some AT-ATs in the desert. That to me was incredible.
Cool.
Really incredible. And like I said, you do see the fifth brother at a point. I don't really want to spoil how, but you do see him. It's great. I love where it's starting out. They have a clear-cut angle of where the whole season's going. I cannot wait for Rebel Season 2.
This may be a little bit too ambitious to cover in just those 2 episodes, but from seeing the siege on Lothal, Kanan and Ezra really got the crap beat out of them by Darth Vader. Yeah. How do they rebound from that, from knowing there's a Sith Lord out there that is hunting them down? And is any part of Ezra yet, or even Kanan for that matter, looking at the dark side again and taking a look like, I wonder how powerful this side is?
Not yet. But they certainly mention him, and it seems like, and from everything that Filoni said, and even in this episode, this is going to be Ahsoka's mission. She's going after Vader. She's going to try to find Vader. She's going to try to figure out now whether or not she knows that he's Anakin Skywalker. We don't know, but that's her journey. As you saw in the interview, I told Filoni I don't think Ahsoka's making it out of this thing. But we'll see. It's a good setup. I don't want them giving away too much in the first 2 episodes. It was a nice way to get me back into where the characters are, and I think the meat of the story will come, 9, 10 episodes in.
And we all get to check out that first episode next week on Disney XD. Is that right?
That's correct.
It's all coming, guys. It's all so quickly happening. You get Rebels next week. You might get the trailer the week after, and then Force Awakens right around the corner.
All right, Mark, what's next?
Let's talk some comic book reviews, Kristian. You checked out a number of books this week.
They all came out yesterday.
I want to start with one that I know you're a huge fan of, or at least one that you were highly anticipating. That would be Shattered Empire. The second issue came out. How'd it read you?
Awesome. It's really cool. It's like this is the stuff that you want to start getting out of the post-Jedi era. And there's some new characters. There's a new device of this. There's a brand new character, the Messenger, I think his name is. Creepy. Is he going to be around? How did they get rid of that guy? If they did in those 30 years, is he going to show up? There's a message from the Emperor, or you're like, well, wait a minute, huh?
Yeah.
I'll just leave.
Huh?
I'll just
I
leave it at
gotta read
that.
this damn thing as
I'll
soon
just
as we
leave it at that. You read the first one.
Because I read the first one, I really liked
should.
it, but there were clear ties in the first one to the Force Awakens.
And there's some ties in this one too. And it's
good.
This. Look, Greg Rucka knows, another guy who knows how to write Star Wars. Like I mentioned those young reader books, and he did Smuggler's Run. I'm a big fan of Greg Rucka, and I know he's been around for a long time. But Greg Rucka, to me, is a guy that anything he writes Star Wars, I'm not going to read everything anyway. But as far as like him, if I see that Greg Rucka, I'm grabbing it first because this guy knows Star Wars.
Feels like he's just writing Star Wars as opposed to trying to write Star Wars.
If you haven't read any Star Wars comics and you're like, I just want to wait for the movies. But I was thinking about I would recommend. Like I know I'm going to get the tweets as far as what comics should I start with. Shattered Empire. If that's what if your journey is the journey to the Force Awakens, and that's all you want to really find out about, Shattered Empire.
Let's face it, that's all of our journeys
a lot
for
of
the next
them,
couple months. Another one you might want to check out is a comic book called Star Wars. They're now up to issue 10. Kristian, issue 10 for you. I know that Star Wars maybe took a dip in your love for it, then it really came back strong, starting with the Obi-Wan issue. Now we're at 10. How do we feel?
I really like it a lot. I'm a big. It did start like the first 3 or 4 issues to me. I almost was like, I don't know if I'm gonna finish this one, and it just has gone up. They do go back into the Han Solo and maybe his wife, maybe not. It's fun banter at this point.
More of that?
No, but it's good. You'd be okay with it. It's fun banter between him, Leia, and then Luke. It's just Luke's journey to be a Jedi, and I like where they're going. There was like a Hutt and he's got to fight in this pit. There's someone who's kind of training him. They're talking about the Jedi lore and how it's you can tell how it's all syncing up with the other comics as well too. Marvel knows the storyline, knows where they're going, and like I said, there's parts when Filoni said it too in the interview. I loved how telling it was. When let's say if they want to do something, they have to pitch it first. They got to pitch it to, okay, well, we were thinking about doing it in this time period. Okay, well, that's not being done anywhere. Whoa, it's being done in Marvel. Oh, really? Then how does that sync up? Like, it's history. You've got to play into it. Like, that's why they know they have to keep. They can't just write without checking in first. So, anyway, that's the Star Wars comic is. I'm a big fan of.
Well, it's good to know because that and Vader, I believe, are around the same timelines. Am I not mistaken? And so Vader is also, and actually that's true in the lore, and it's also true with the way the issues come out, because I think we're also on Vader issue number 10. How'd that one shape out?
Vader was the exact opposite for me as to where it started up here and then started to go down. I started getting really confused and not caring about it. It just seemed kind of like a wonky sci-fi Star Wars with Vader in it. But this issue was really good because you're starting to get back into core issues of the Star Wars saga. There's some mentions of like he sends his agents to go to Naboo, and there's some investigation on how Padme died, and the investigate, did she have a child, did she not? It's more linking back into the mythology that we know and love. So they hooked me on it. They got me back with more of the Star Wars lore, not just some random thing I didn't care about anymore.
Who are we looking at on the cover there?
That's Vader's like main. Some people think that Felicity Jones might be playing her in Rogue One. I don't think so, but she's like his fangirl, but like working as an agent for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. And we're going to close out with everybody's favorite card-playing scoundrel, Lando. We're on the 5th issue of Lando. You've been enjoying the hell out of this thing. How'd it go?
Cat people are back.
Yeah, the Jedi cats.
But the cats are Sith cats. Yeah, but they're back, and it didn't bother me as much this time around because they explained a little bit more about what they were. But it really does.
It did bother. Come on,
it's not as bad because it's not just some random weirdo in like a costume. It's like the race of people. So I was like, all right,
it's a race of cat people.
Yeah, but it's whatever. But it's the comic itself that it's the relationship between Lando and Lobot, and the fact that they've stolen the Emperor's ship with all the Sith artifacts on it. It's an interesting tale. So all these comics, I got to tell you, this week's row of comics were the best row that have come in. There's been a lot of them that came out on the same day. This was the one I went, okay, next one, because I read Vader second to last because I figured I was like dreading reading it because I haven't been enjoying it, and I went up. So what I would recommend if you haven't read any of these and you want to start, I would say Shattered Empire, not only because it's only 2 issues in and easy to catch up. It's post-Jedi, and you're going to get some more ties into The Force Awakens.
All right. Cat people are back. Good news. Kristian, let's move from comic books back into the novels now, because you, again, as we referenced, you had a very big week, and you got to interview the author of Star Wars Lost Stars, the novel you've been raving about, Claudia Gray. I hope you didn't fanboy out too much and embarrass yourself.
Well, I can't promise that, but what I can say is that this shows how grateful I am to you guys as fans, because fans of Star Wars, because what I had been talking about this book because I just picked it up, told the fans about it. Thank you for trusting in my word, and they went and they read it, and people were loving the book, and people started tweeting at Claudia. Claudia became aware of the show, and then she started tweeting back, and her and I went back and forth, and she was very appreciative of the word of mouth we were giving the book. So we talked back and forth on Twitter, and she's like, I'd love to talk to you and love to talk about the book a little bit. So she called in, and I was able to get a really cool interview. It's we got about 8-9 minutes of talking to her, and she really, you listen to her when she speaks. This is a diehard Star Wars fan. This is someone who knows the world, like we were just talking about with Filoni. They're staffing really well over there, man. So take a look. This is me talking with Claudia Gray, from the author of Lost Stars. And if you have not seen or heard about this book yet, check it out. I think that you'll really enjoy it. But here is my interview with Claudia Gray. All right, Jedi Council, allow me to geek out. As you know I will. If you've been watching this show for the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks, month, I have been raving about a particular book, and that book is Lost Stars. It is part of the Star Wars canon, and we are super, super happy on Jedi Council. Today, the author of said book of Lost Stars, it's Claudia Gray. Claudia, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm super happy. And like I said, I am geeking out right now. There's so many questions that I wanted to ask you about this book, about how you got involved with this story, about the characters. I mean, everything. Let's go back in time here when, as far as you getting involved in the Star Wars universe. Now, I remember, and if you've seen me talk about the book, and I have admitted this, and I'll admit this to you, when I first heard, as like a lot of other people did, and probably incorrectly, when I heard Star Wars is getting the young adult treatment, and I was like, are we twilighting Star Wars now? What are we doing with Star Wars? And I'm sure that has happened time and time again. And then you realize of what a true Star Wars fan that you are, and the way that you wrote this. It's not about just. I think young adult gets a bad term. Sometimes it's just like it shouldn't be recognized the way it is. I think it's because of Twilight that has done that. So my question to you, it's a long-winded question here, is as far as when you hear the initial reaction to, oh, I'm writing this story, oh, it's young adult, is that discouraging at first, and how do you get past that?
I also steered very clear of fan forums and things as well. First of all, again, avoiding spoilers. And second, I knew that there would be some pushback, and I didn't want to confront it. You know, I was like, all that's going to do is make me nervous or make me second guess myself or something. And I just didn't want that to be a part of the experience at all. But yeah, I've actually been really surprised, since I am a young adult writer, and that's all I've published to date. Of course, my readers have always been young adult readers, and I read a lot of the books, etc. So I was sort of surprised how many people were like, oh, I couldn't believe a young adult novel would talk about, you know, child abuse, or I can't believe a young adult novel would deal with these philosophical questions. And I was sort of like, wow, I think a lot of people really did think like, oh, it's Twilight and that's the end. Whereas there's a whole lot more stuff going on, I think.
So what you have done in this book, it just the way you take us through the original trilogy, and it's not, pun intended, forced. It is so organic, and the way that there are characters that we love from the original trilogy that make their way in. Now, when you were putting this story together, how much involvement did the story team, like say a Pablo Hidalgo or Leland Chee or that area, do you get involved with them? Do they speak to you? Do you know what you can say, what you can't? How does that process work?
It's a little bit like a tennis match in some ways. You sort of find this out, you say this comes back. But, I was really surprised, because when they came to me, when I got the email, my first was, well, they're going to tell me what to write, and I'll write that. They'll have a story. But instead, they really very much just had the concept. They wanted star-crossed lovers on either side of the war. And they said, we want this really young, idealistic woman who ends up joining the rebellion, and this really dark, cynical guy who ends up joining the Empire, but they have this connection that endures despite that. And I came back and said, okay, what if the idealistic girl joins the Empire and the broody guy joins the rebellion? Do we do that? And they said, yeah, sure. So then I came up with the story. They said that they wanted to go through the events. That was very much a part of it. They wanted to revisit most of the major events of the original trilogy. And I would send it back, and they go, oh, don't touch this. This isn't an area you want to be. That ship isn't actually in that area right now. Stuff like that. But they weren't creative notes, if that makes sense. It was more, we tell you how this will fit into the universe, and now you get to have fun with it, which is fantastic. My editors were great.
I think that that's very revealing in a way, because it shows how detailed they are, like you said, with just that little mention of, no, you don't want to use that ship because it's not going to fit together, and it helps you out, I'm sure, as an author and as you're telling this story. It actually brings up another question here, because we talked about the fan reaction. What has the reaction from Lucasfilm been, and from Disney, about the book and the way that fans have been reacting? Have you gotten some feedback from them? Because I know that I've seen it. I've been included on tweets as far as, will there be a sequel to the book? Will you be writing other Star Wars properties? Will you be doing stuff? Maybe, I don't know if you have a particular deal with just Lucasfilm, or will you ever be crossing over into the Delaware world? I don't know how your deal is structured, but as far as coming over to doing more Star Wars stuff, what has the Lucasfilm reaction been like?
We haven't actually interacted that much since the books come out, mostly because I think I'm in the whirlpool of finishing something else, and I think they're in this huge vortex of The Force Awakens that is, pulling in everybody. But
I've heard of that
editors, film. The editors very much expressed to me when I handed in the book how happy they were with it and how much they enjoyed this, and I'd be so excited to write in that universe again. I would love to do that. I'll finally sort of be seeing people from Lucasfilm and talking with them and stuff. New York Comic-Con, I don't know
cool.
who's coming to that, but I will be there on Star Wars Reads Day, 2 panels and a signing. So I'll get to sort of talk with everybody then, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about the release. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. And I wanted to thank you for joining us here today. Now, Claudia, before I let you go, I wanted to give the fans an opportunity, because I know how many fans have been tweeting me about how much they love Lost Stars and particularly your writing. If someone wants to discover your work or find some work that you either have out there or maybe that you are releasing soon, can you give us a little bit more on the inside of what you're working on right now?
Right now I'm working on just final edits for the 3rd book in my YA science fiction trilogy, Firebird trilogy. The first book is already out, 1,000 Pieces of You. That's the story of Marguerite, who is the daughter of 2 famous scientists, and she is chasing her father's killer through alternate dimensions. Ooh. And in every world, only your consciousness travels, so you appear in another version of yourself. So not only does she have to figure out the universe that it's in, and some of them are very where she is, and some of them are radically different. They may live on a different continent, have different technological levels. She doesn't know until she arrives, but she also has to figure out who she is there. And so it's not only sort of this thriller where she's chasing the person that's done this to her family, but it's also a big look into the question, what doesn't change in me? What would always be the same in me versus what would be different if just a few things in my life had changed? Because we all ask that question. You can never really know the answer. But in this trilogy, I got to explore that a lot. So the first book is already out, 1,000 Pieces of You. And the second book, 10,000 Skies Above You, is going to come out in November 3rd.
Ooh, all right. And I will be checking that. That sounds phenomenal, actually. I have to thank you once again for writing Lost Stars from the perspective of a real, true, passionate Star Wars fan who knows this world, who knows this universe, who really gave me, between Thane and C and I felt like I was watching a version of Leia and Han again, that back and forth, just that nice, just what we had in Empire. And I really want, as a Star Wars fan, I want to thank you for putting this out there, and thank you for joining us today on Jedi Council.
I'm so glad that you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for being behind the book and adding that support, because getting that fan feedback has been tremendous.
Good. And like I said, you deserve it. Thank you so much, fans. Make sure that you join Claudia on Twitter. She's so active on Twitter. It's really refreshing to see, at Claudia Gray. Check out her books. Check out Lost Stars. And hopefully when she writes the next Star Wars one, Lost Stars 2, she will be back to talk about it here on Jedi Council. Claudia, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You see what I mean? As far as that's just who she is. It's like you were saying before. This is not someone who is just writing Star Wars. She knows the character. She knows the lore, and you felt it. And you can feel it just hearing the passion in her voice.
Yeah, but I didn't get to help interview her, so she needs to come on the show too. We'd actually like Claudia to come on the show.
Yeah, she'll live in LA.
Hang out. We'll fly her out. We got that budget.
Oh, yeah?
I'm getting the maybe sign.
Another Carfax check?
Getting the definitely maybe sign. Show me the Carfax.
Perfect. So if you want to watch the full interview with Claudia Gray, that is also up on this channel here. So make sure you check that out. And thank you to Dennis Zhang, who has cut all of these interviews for us so you guys can see them. I mean, it's a lot of work. People don't realize how much work Dennis does. So, Dennis, thank you. I wouldn't be saying that if you were here.
Aw, that was really earnest. I really believed that.
You did believe it?
Yeah.
I wasn't just writing it?
It was good. I mean, I heard you practicing it in the bathroom for an hour.
It was originally going to be to Wendy, but she's gotten enough praise. Okay, we wanted to hear from you guys, and this is where we take your tweets. This is Twitter questions. You guys every week, every day, hopefully, are submitting hashtag Collider Jedi Council, and you're asking us questions, and we're trying to get them on the air. Because we've had a pretty stacked show, we're only going to do about 3 or 4 today, but nonetheless, we still want to get the voices of the fans out there. Mark, who's up first?
Parker Meadows is up first, and he asked a bit of a morbid question, but we got to talk about it. Who would you want to score Episode 8 and 9 if John Williams is unable to return?
He didn't say if he's going to die.
That's what I mean. Come on,
he just said he was unable to return.
Because there's no way John Williams doesn't come back unless he is like he's physically unable to perform,
right. Or if he's going on vacation. I would say Michael Giacchino is probably the best choice. I'd also say, oh man, I can't remember the guy who does the Rebel score, Kevin. I can't remember his name, but he pretty much sounds like John Williams for the most part too. I would. Those are the two. We're talking about the saga because we already have a different composer for Rogue One, and I think that they should continue to do that. Just give the anthology films kind of like their own feel, and you still want to feel like Star Wars, but you want to still make it different and unique. But when it comes to the saga, it's got to sound like John Williams all the way through.
And it would be kind of cool to give Kevin Kiner a shot from Rebels, yes. But Giacchino would be the guy for me because of what he did with Jurassic World. Like he took
Giacchino.
It's Michael G is his name,
and
for him to take the original score of Jurassic Park and give us so many notes of that, but also infuse new things into the Jurassic World, really impressed me. If he can't do it, how about Queen? Let's get the band Queen to do it.
Mark, Queen's not together anymore. Freddie Mercury died.
Well, would have been neat. Flash.
Star Wars. Okay. What's next?
Or get Bill Murray just to sing Star Wars over and over again.
That'd be great.
Steve Seeley writes that there is a rumor stormtroopers are trained in lightsaber combat, and that is why Finn can use one. Is this true?
I have no idea if it's true, but I can tell you that I love it. Yeah. I think that's great. I think that this goes back to the comic, the Star Wars I was reading, that something happened with those lightsabers. Like when all the Jedi were killed, the lightsabers were found. Somebody had them. What I liked about the comic was what they said was that because no one with skill was around to use them, they just kind of went out. But some of them were able, enough of them were still recovered that maybe they figured out a way to use it. And the stormtroopers using lightsabers, that'd be great. I mean, they're not going to be as skilled as, say, Luke or Kylo Ren, or
no, they're still stormtroopers.
Right.
Let's not mistake. They'll probably turn it on and chop their own heads off. But
I love that idea.
It's not a sword in the stone situation where you can just I could find a lightsaber, hit a button, and just try not to cut my arm off.
Right.
Han was gonna use Luke's lightsaber in Return of the Jedi. He was trying, and Luke's like, Han, can you reach my lightsaber? It's like it's just a weapon.
He used it.
He was trying to, and he cut the thing.
But he used it in Empire.
And he used it in Empire. He cut a Tauntaun's belly with it.
Yeah, he's the only non-Jedi to use a lightsaber in the entire trilogy
so far. Oh, in that trilogy, yeah. I don't know. George Lucas might do another special edition. We'll see.
True. All right, what's next?
Geo writes, J.J. Ryan and Colin have each made a film dealing with time travel. Will there be any time travel in the new trilogy?
Oh, God, I hope not. I love time travel, but it doesn't belong in Star Wars. It's too tricky. You start doing time travel, and then you bring the Emperor back, and then you bring Vader back, and it's no time travel in Star Wars.
I think you get enough of that with hyperspace. I think that is that's your time travel element to it, is the fact that you go and just appear somewhere else.
Yeah, I want nothing to do with time travel in Star Wars.
Maybe flashbacks.
Flashbacks, totally, but that's
maybe
not
flashbacks.
time travel. I think you can bank on the fact you're getting a flashback.
Oh, really?
I take it to the bank.
I can take my kids to private school because I'm going to bet on a flashback?
I think that that shot of Luke petting R2-D2 in the teaser, I think that's a flashback.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, last one.
Jorge Alegre writes, Hello, Jedi Council. Could you see Luke Skywalker becoming a Force ghost by Episode 9? These tweets are killing me today.
I want you to start with that one.
I want Luke to die. I mean, look.
Episode 9, the end of the saga.
Yes, Kristian, it's still a Star Wars movie. I do not want Luke to die ever. If he had to die, then, I'd like to see him as a Force ghost. I mean, but I can't think about this stuff now. I want to see him alive first.
Luke's going out like a boss. When Luke goes out, he's going to do the same thing that Obi-Wan Kenobi did. Like, around the lines of he just knows when it's time to go, and he's going to become one with the Force. He probably already knows how to do it now. But when he goes, he's going to be a Force ghost. I think it would be great to end Episode 9, with Luke as a Force ghost. That'd be perfect.
But here's what Jorge's asking.
No Han.
Does he become a Force ghost by Episode 9? So the end of Episode 8, Is Luke Skywalker
I would rather
still
I would
alive?
rather end of episode 9. I think he needs to stick around. Like I still think that I don't want to see Snoke versus Luke until episode 9. That's when I want to see that fight. Like you're going to be leading up to it. Like, would I be upset if it happens in episode 8? No, but I would love that. That's your main event.
Yeah, but I mean, I also like if the episode 7 crawl text, we get 3 paragraphs panned down. Luke's fighting Snoke. I'm cool with that too.
Yeah.
I want to see them go at it as soon as possible.
All right, that's it. That's our show today. I'd like to thank Claudia Gray for giving us a great interview, as well as Dave Filoni. Again, remember, if you want to check out the rest of those interviews that I did with the cast of Rebels or with the extended interview with Claudia Gray, just go right here on Collider Video, and you can watch those full interviews. I have to thank the council today, the Full Stack Council. Mark 2D2, where can the good people find you?
They can find me hanging out on this very show and on Movie Talk from time to time, also on Collider, and you can find me online at 5150 Ellis on Twitter and Instagram.
Well, Mark and I are also going into battle tonight, the Ultimate Schmodown. It is our round 2 match against Sasha Pearl-Raver and Miri Jedikin. If you want to go and check that out, just go to our YouTube channel, Schmoes Know, at 6 p.m. PST tonight.
It's going to be like Luke Skywalker fighting a stormtrooper.
Oh, don't get cocky, kid. That's it for me. It's at Kristian Harloff on both Twitter and Instagram. And thank you so much. Make sure that you hashtag Collider Jedi Council. Get your questions on the air, and we'll see you next week.